Scoot up for a second and let's talk. Yo, DJ, roll that beautiful champagne footage.
Champagne secrets on your screen where every vid's a gorgeous dream. Reactions full of light and fun, empowerment for everyone.
Champagne gang, FizzFam, Confidants. Welcome to the Champagne City for a little champagne conversation, fizz feed conversation, whatever we decide to call it. But if this is your first time here, hi, I'm the Empress, and you are joining me for grown discussions and bubbly banter. Over here, we give classy with a twist, huh? A little clink with chaos with a side of charm. And if you're ready to sip, savor, and spill, baby, grab your favorite glass of bubbly, kick your feet up on one of those chase lounges, say hi to a few people in the chat because we're friendly over here. And let's get ready to get into the show, because if you've been watching the news for the past few days, baby, maybe you've been as perplexed as I am. I mean, really, because I know you've heard of the story of the Black Hawk military helicopter that collided with the passenger jet near the White House and the Pentagon and Capitol. I know, see, one thing that you're going to realize over here is I'm highly a conspiracist. I am. So when it doesn't make sense, it just doesn't make sense. And we're going to get into it because Lucy, you got some splaining to do. Somebody gonna have to make this one make sense. So we're gonna get into it. We got some videos we're gonna check out. Please make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you enjoy the video, I would greatly appreciate it. Consider joining the Champagne Gang and the FizzFam. Become one of us. And if you're not sure just yet, don't worry about it. We'll leave the light on for you. Let's get ready to get into the initial report of this crash when it happened. Check this out.
This breaking news that we have just started to cover, which is a plane crash in Washington, D.C. We have a little bit more information than we previously had just moments ago when I first brought you news of this crash. These are still preliminary reports, but this is a serious incident. What we believe has happened here, again, according to preliminary reports, is that there has been a collision between an American Airlines regional jet, so a passenger plane, that was flying into DCA, flying into Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C., the flight originated apparently in Wichita, Kansas. The collision was reportedly with a Black Hawk helicopter. And both the helicopter and the American Airlines regional jet are believed to be down in the Potomac River, where rescue operations are currently going on. Reagan National Airport is shut down because of this emergency right now. The Potomac River is very near to Reagan National Airport. These things are in very close proximity, but as you see here, there's a huge police, fire, EMS response. We're told that police fireboats are part of this operation, but they are trying to rescue people out of the Potomac, as far as we understand it right now. We have NBC News' Tom Costello on the phone now. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello. Tom, has anything I just said has the reporting gotten any further beyond what I just said, and is anything that I said inaccurate?
No, you're absolutely 100% accurate, at least as of this moment. No surprise, Reagan Airport is now shut down as we are dealing with a major emergency here right on the Potomac at Reagan National Airport. As you mentioned, this is apparently a regional jet coming in from Wichita, and a regional jet can carry anywhere from 50 to 100 people, depending on how crowded it is, how busy it is. And then a Black Hawk helicopter. Anybody who's been to Reagan Airport, you know that there is a lot of military type of helicopter activity right over the river, right across the river, because of course we've got the helicopter base that handles everything for the White House, for the president, and then you've got an awful lot of diplomatic type of helicopter traffic up and down the river. So exactly how this happened, how we have this apparent collision midair over the Potomac River, and at this moment, we have reports that both the plane and the chopper are in fact in the water. It is a massive response, complicated. It has been complicated by the fact that we have had a very icy Potomac River because it was so cold here over the past week. And Rachel, we had a horrific accident on one of the bridges last week between the district and Virginia where a truck went into the river, but because it was so covered in ice, The DC Fire Department's icebreaker ship is out of service. It's not even anywhere near DC right now. And as a result, that complicated the rescue efforts. I am hoping that the ice broke up enough over the last few days where we've had warmer temps, allowing these boats to get to the scene faster. That was a huge problem last week, and literally 2 people died, and the rescue response was delayed because of that lack of an icebreaker. As for this very moment, though, exactly how this happened, we simply don't know at this hour. As you know, right on the river, anybody who's come into Reagan National Airport knows you come right over the river, and you have to avoid that very sensitive airspace over Washington, D.C., for example, over the White House, over the National Mall, over the Capitol. That's all restricted airspace. And so that forces air traffic to come down, either down the river from north to south or from south to north. We don't, at this hour, know precisely how this particular flight was coming in, the regional jet, and we don't know exactly if it was too far out over the river, a lot of unanswered questions. And immediately, the concern is, are there people in the water who are alive? This is an all-out emergency of the highest order right now. I would also point out, for those who don't live in the D.C. area, there is a multi-agency mutual assist agreement on major incidents like this. So they're going to have not only, of course, the airport fire rescue team, they're also going to have the D.C. Fire and Rescue. They're going to get Arlington and Alexandria from Virginia, probably even Montgomery County from Maryland, all responding in. This would be the highest priority, and you can imagine the mutual aid response is going to be, really of a high magnitude.
Here's my question, right? Like, why would you have commercial flights flying that close to the White House, State Capitol, Pentagon, all places of importance? Didn't we learn anything from like 9/11? Like, why would you? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I would think, with the amount of money that we send overseas, we can figure out how to have an airport that isn't flying in the same airspace that is used for military training. Or you wouldn't have commercial air flights that is flying that close to areas of such importance where anything can go wrong. We've learned that we're not impenetrable. 9/11 taught us that. So why wouldn't we start thinking about, let's separate these airspaces? Let this be a military no-fly zone. Those are my thoughts, though. Let's continue.
Tom, as we've been talking, we've been observing some of the comments, public comments that have been made, particularly by elected officials who represent Kansas. Again, we believe that this American Airlines regional jet this flight originated in Kansas, potentially in Wichita, Kansas. Senator Jerry Moran from Kansas has just posted online, learning that a plane inbound from Kansas was involved in a crash at DCA. He says, I am in contact with authorities. Please join me in praying for all involved. I mentioned that because it would seem to indicate at least be some corroboration of the idea that this jet was from Kansas in terms of where it started. Tom, let me just ask you what you were describing about the 2 aircraft that we believe were involved here. A Black Hawk helicopter, the American Airlines regional jet, which, as you note, is a jet of a size that can carry 50 to 100 people, generally speaking, categorically speaking. We have no idea how many people were on board that jet at this point.
Yeah.
Is air traffic control at DCA more complex than it would be at other airports of that size because of the confluence of military and diplomatic travel, the involvement of things like Black Hawk helicopters, along with commercial and private air?
I think that's accurate. Yeah. I mean, listen, and we've also had a series of close calls here at Reagan Airport over the last couple of years, in which planes got way too close to each other and had to wave off. And can I just draw your attention to the fact that we are just now getting an FAA statement that, in fact, a Bombardier CRJ 700 regional jet collided in midair with a Sikorsky H-60 helicopter while on approach to runway 33 at Reagan Washington Airport, 9 p.m. local time. And this was operating as Flight 5342 for American, leaving Wichita, Kansas, inbound to Reagan Airport. And obviously, according to the FAA, both the FAA and NTSB will investigate. The priority at this moment is saving lives. getting as many assets as possible out there onto the river. Whether that's DC Fire and Rescue, Arlington, Alexandria, whoever is available, whoever has rescue boats available, get them in the water as fast as possible. And this harkens back, in my mind, I would tell you, Rachel, back to the early 80s when we had a plane go down in the Potomac River. And it was a plane that literally had left Reagan Airport, and it was at the time called National Airport, had not been properly de-iced. It hit the bridge and went into the river and killed an awful lot of people. I'd have to go back and look at how many. But since then, that was one of the many reasons that de-icing equipment became standard on planes. Nonetheless, we haven't had any sort of an accident like this at Reagan Airport since then, since the early 80s. This is extremely serious.
Tom, I want to put up something on screen here that I've just been told. I have not seen this. We're going to be showing to our viewers and seeing it here for the first time. This is from EarthCam. It's some footage that may show the actual collision. Let's just watch here and see what we can see. And we're seeing this as you are. Oh, yes. The crash there in the center of your screen, sort of toward the right. Again, what the FAA is saying that we are seeing here is the mid-air collision of a Bombardier CRJ 700 regional jet. It was American Airlines Flight 5342 from Wichita to Washington, D.C., colliding mid-air with a Sikorsky H-60 helicopter as the plane was on approach to land at runway 33 at Reagan Washington National Airport. We've got the FAA and NTSB investigating, the NTSB leading the investigation. We've got what appears to be a rescue effort underway with these aircraft and their passengers potentially being in the icy Potomac River right now, and that rescue operation being not only massive but incredibly urgent, in part because of the freezing temperatures both in that water and just generally in Washington, D.C. right now.
So I'm not sure what happened to the audio right there, but I wanted us to take a closer look
that may show
at
the
this
actual
crash.
collision. Let's just watch here and see what we can see.
Because from what I'm seeing, it looks like the Black Hawk went straight into the plane, like no attempt to divert. No, now I mean, look at it. The plane, from what I hear, is headed toward the runway.
That may show the actual collision.
The plane is facing
Let's
us.
watch here and see what we can see.
The Black Hawk is coming from the rear. You couldn't go up, you couldn't go down. Like, someone has to make this make sense. We have so much in place, I thought, to help prevent things like this from happening. And on top of that, the military is involved. So, wouldn't the military have? I want to know.
That may show the actual collision.
I want not know. I want to hear
see what we can see.
The conversations and what was going on in that chopper before this happened. That's what I need to hear. Because this doesn't make sense to me. Are you telling me the chopper didn't see it? So their radars were off?
That may show the actual collision.
You telling me the military base wasn't alerted to? I don't know how the communication works between the military base and the chopper, but they didn't notice anything wrong in the vicinity? So, yeah, I don't know. Apparently investigations are happening regarding this situation.
That may show the actual collision.
And we're going to watch a few videos on that. But in, how should I say, regular Trump fashion, Trump responds to this whole situation. And this is what he has to say. He said the airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It is a clear night. The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane? This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Not good. Y'all know I'm not a Trump fan. Not. But when you're right, you're right. And I'm agreeing with Trump from what I saw in this video. It looks to me like that chopper was approaching that plane.
Just watch here and
you
see
can't
what we can
tell
see.
me the chopper did not have this plane in his line of sight. You can drop in the comments and let me know what you think. Am I conspiracizing too much? Or do you share in my theory that something about the water just don't smell right?
That may
Something
show
is
the
wrong.
actual collision.
I need to know.
Let's
Now, I
watch
do
here and
know
see what we can
and we're
see.
going to get into it, but I do know they've released some of the names of the individuals who were on the plane. But who were the individuals in the helicopter? And who are the rest of the individuals on the plane that aren't being mentioned? Who were all the passengers? Because I'm just 2 + 2 is not
That may
equaling
show
4.
the actual collision.
And I'm trying to make
Let's
it make
watch here and see
sense.
what we can see.
So after Trump's response, let me get his response back up here. This was the response of Pete Buttigieg, who is the former U.S. Secretary of Transportation. He says despicable. As families grieve, Trump should be leading, not lying. We put safety first, drove down close calls, grew air traffic control, and had 0 commercial airline crash fatalities out of millions of flights on our watch. President Trump now oversees the military and the FAA. One of his first acts was to fire and suspend some of the key personnel who helped keep our skies safe. Time for the president to show actual leadership and explain what he will do to prevent this from happening again. First of all, here's my problem with this whole statement, right? You're making it political when it should be about the people, unless you're trying to say that Trump is directly responsible for this crash that happened in the middle of the air. At the end of the day, Trump was right. It was a clear night. He had clear line of sight. Why didn't he go up? Why didn't he go down? Why didn't anyone else notice it enough to divert it? But we might be able to answer that question in just a second. We're going to continue. But here's my problem. Let's not make it political unless you're going to show proof. Unless you're showing proof that says that Trump was directly responsible for this, then everything else is hearsay. And I am getting really, really sick of hearsay. Everybody is talking without proof of anything. And then people run with the narratives based on hearsay. Back when I was a kid, we used to call it he said, she said. Yeah, it's the same thing. Just because he said it, it should be believed without proof. I'll be right with Trump when he right. You got to take your feelings for the man out the situation. And when he's right, he's right. At the end of the day, the plane was not at fault here. And that's why I don't understand why the media keeps saying the plane collided with the chopper. That's not what happened. The plane was in front. Someone's got to explain this because it just doesn't make sense. But this is what I want us to check out next. They're going to get into some of the individuals who were on the plane. Check this out.
El-Nashar, who's been checking in with flyers who have been there at the Reagan National Airport. Atra, who are you speaking with specifically, those coming in, trying to leave, and what are they saying to you?
Well, think about this. A lot of the people who had planned to travel today were probably packing their suitcases when they got that news alert or saw the breaking news last night of the plane crash and probably thought, oh my gosh, can I get on this plane in the morning? A lot of people, of course, probably thought no, and the airport, frankly, felt pretty empty this morning, but there were folks who decided to just carry on and go forward with their plans. I spoke to a lot of specifically Southwest passengers. Southwest was offering folks the option to just not fly today, to just get a refund or to rebook their travel through another airport. And, obviously I talked to only folks who did go ahead and travel today, of course, because they were at the airport. And a few young women, for example, they were traveling to Florida for vacation and they just thought, you know what, they've got to live their lives and go through with it. They know that, nothing in life is certain, but they were still pretty nervous to get on the plane. One gentleman was headed to Arizona. He really didn't want to get on the plane today, but it was his mother's 85th birthday. He said it was something he just couldn't miss. And then another couple, they're heading to Texas, and they said, you know what? Such is life. We have to trust in God, is what they told me, and they had to go forward with their plans. But of course, in the back of all of their minds is what's happened just behind me, and the debris and the victims and the family members grieving today, and hard to comprehend still what happened. But as hard as it is for people getting on planes, think about what it's like for the families dropping off their loved ones to get on a plane. I talked to a woman who was sending off her elderly father. It's got to be much harder to send somebody off on a plane right now and not be there with them than it is probably to get on a plane yourself.
And we understand you're also learning more about the figure skaters who were on board. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, so I'm actually talking to a source who works for USA Skating. And in this very moment, she is helping to notify families of what we believe are 20 figure skaters who made up about a third of the passengers on that American Airlines flight. Again, she's notifying the families as we speak. She's able to send me a few text messages. She's not authorized to speak on behalf of the organization, which is why I can't identify her. But she was just with these folks, these young kids, frankly, who were on the flight last night. She says, I'm just going to read you some of the quotes she told me. She says, I was with them at the U.S. Championships all last week. These people stayed longer. So these kids that were on the flight, they were actually like the elite of the elite. They were participating in a development camp we were hosting in conjunction with the competition. They were for older top-level elite skaters. And the camp is for elite young skaters that we expect to be on Team USA in the future. So these were kids that were thought to be Olympians in the future. They had such bright futures. They were incredibly skilled, clearly incredibly dedicated to their sport. She said she knew every athlete and coach personally. Some of them were parents. And as far as their travel plans last night, why they were on that specific flight, because I was wondering why were so many of them on that flight? Were they all from this area? She says that they were taking the last flight they could out of Wichita. There were limited options to get back to the East Coast. She said several of them were from Northern Virginia, but others had a connection to get back to Boston, to New York City. And as for the Russian nationals that were on the flight, she gave me some more information about that. She says that they skated for Russia quite a while ago, but they're now parents and coaches of a younger Team USA athlete. And that younger athlete flew home a few days earlier after being on the podium at the competition and earning a spot on the Four Continents World Team. As far as the age ranges, she said early teens, some younger. As for what's going on right now in this moment, she says we are confirming with all families. The Skating Club of Boston has confirmed and shared about the 6 people who had ties to their club, but there are several more from other areas and other clubs. And she just texted me, I can't believe it.
One of the things that stresses me out and frustrates me about our media, right? My heart goes out to all of these young people who perished from the team and their trainers and coaches. We wonder why we have a society that thrives on celebrity. Just like these young people were on that plane, the pilots were on that plane, the flight attendants were on that plane. There were 40 other individuals on that plane. Just as much as you talk about these young people who were future Olympians with futures so bright. There were other individuals on that plane with bright futures as well. Unless you're going to tell me that plane was full of dummies, ventriloquist dolls. When are we going to get to a place where everybody is important, no matter their economic status, no matter their financial status, no matter who they know, who they're attached to? When are we going to get to the place where we put just as much emphasis on the person with $5 in their pocket as we do the person with 5 million? The same way they took out time on this broadcast to talk about these future Olympians, they should have taken the same amount of time to talk about all the rest of the people who are on the plane. The brothers, the possible parents, the possible grandparents, sons, grandsons, nephews, uncles, nieces. Their lives matter too. The next thing that I want us to do, get off my screen, please. The next thing that I want to get into is they're going to talk about potentially, how did this happen? Let's check this out.
Zeroing in on the final seconds before the deadly collision and crash last night, how did the aircraft end up on the same altitude? And why didn't the pilot of the Black Hawk helicopter and the passenger plane, why didn't they see each other? Very big questions. But what are the answers? Where are the answers? Investigative reporter Dan Kraut continues our coverage. Dan?
Bill, sources tell ABC News staffing at the air traffic control tower was not normal at the time of this crash. When air traffic goes down, a supervisor can combine 2 controller positions into one. It happens routinely. Last night, it happened 40 minutes earlier than normal. One person was handling traffic for both commercial and helicopter traffic. Before the explosion, you can see the path the 2 aircrafts were taking. The commercial pilot, in yellow, focused on the runway ahead of him, just seconds away from landing. An air traffic controller spotted the Black Hawk nearby in its training mission and warned him to stay away. The Black Hawk pilot then confirmed he spotted the plane. But that separation didn't happen.
He was looking at something, but apparently it wasn't the same airplane.
With all the updated technology and aircraft warning systems, in those moments, experts say, it all came down to line of sight and preliminarily, human error.
So we have a thing called see and avoid that has been a problem in aviation since the very beginning. Sometimes, even though we're responsible for seeing and avoiding, we don't have the right aircraft.
The 10-ton military helicopter collided with a 100-foot-long plane that weighed 3 times as much, plummeting into the Potomac. Officials with the National Transportation Safety Board are on scene, but an exact cause won't come quickly. Their investigation could take a year to find exact answers.
We are going to get to the bottom of this investigation, not in 3 years, not in 4 years, but as quickly as possible.
We found the NTSB has investigated 35 near collisions in the air since 2008. 23 of those involved commercial flights. 4 resulted in accidents. And as you can see, those accidents led to injuries and even death.
So is it safe to fly? You're safer by far flying in a commercial airliner anywhere than you are driving to the airport, and that is factual.
An internal operational report here shows there were no staffing concerns inside the control tower last night. The military is now reviewing where and when the military does Black Hawk training.
So as you just heard, he was given the instruction to change course. He said he saw the plane in the sight. They're trying to say that it's a potential that he saw a different plane and not that plane. My question would be, I don't know what were the lights that he thought was in front of him then. I don't know, an alien, falling stars. What did they think they were seeing if it wasn't another plane? Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it's just me. So check out this really quick. They're going to go a little further into the investigation.
Learning more about some of the 67 victims killed in that deadly mid-air collision near Washington, D.C.
Meanwhile, the federal investigation continues to ramp up. The NTSB shared these photos of the black boxes recovered from the American Airlines plane.
D.C. Fire and EMS say recovery efforts will continue in the Potomac River today. Crews will search for bodies and pieces of the plane as well as the helicopter.
And while flights resumed out of Reagan International Airport yesterday, runway 33, where the ill-fated plane was supposed to land, is closed until February 7th.
Now, for the latest, let's turn now to Kimberly Richardson, who has been there. She's live near the crash site in Arlington, Virginia. Kimberly?
Well, Janice and Pedro, right now, the Potomac, which is right behind me, just beyond the runway, it looks very different than it did at this exact time yesterday morning when flashing emergency lights filled this water. Boats are still out there, and soon divers will be back in the water to resume the very difficult task of recovering some of the victims. Yesterday, 40 people were filled from the wreckage, and later today, a crane is expected to be brought here to help with that operation. But once again, the workers are working under challenging conditions. There is tons of metal in the water, what's left of these planes, not to mention loads of jet fuel. This morning, divers will begin the grim task of recovering the wreckage from American Airlines Flight 5342 and the Army Black Hawk helicopter that collided in the skies above the Potomac River.
Crash, crash, crash. This is Alert 3. Crash, crash, crash. This is Alert 3.
Overnight, the NTSB released pictures of the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, the plane's so-called black boxes.
We'll be able to put it in space and time, exactly what headings were they on, what airspeeds were they flying, and a lot of other information that may help us understand the accident.
Early indications are the helicopter appeared to be flying at about 350 feet when it should have been cruising under 200 feet. A source with direct knowledge tells ABC News the air traffic controller on duty was performing the job of 2 employees. This is usually done when there's less air traffic, but on Wednesday night, that change from 2 controllers to 1 was made 40 minutes earlier than usual because of lighter traffic.
We are going to leave no stone unturned in this investigation.
And the NTSB goes on to say it is all hands on deck. Those black boxes will be examined in a lab just about a mile from here and really will provide critical information. Those devices, there weren't any on that military helicopter. Still, officials say they have already recovered a tremendous amount of data. Of course.
So, y'all, I don't know. Drop in the comments and let me know what you think about all of this. Like I said, 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 to me. I really would love to hear what the last conversation was on that helicopter. A Black Hawk at that. I mean, yeah. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. There's nothing that I can think of that will help me make this make sense. I don't know, except the lights were on in front of the airplane, but not in the rear. How do you not see that you're approaching a plane? I'm not a pilot. I don't know. Maybe a pilot can jump in the comments and let me know how this kind of thing would be possible. That's all I have for this one. Please drop in the comments and let me know. These highlights. This is why I don't wear eyelashes. They stress me out. They really do. But drop in the comments and let me know what you thought about today's show. What do you think about this whole plane crash thing? And let's not even get into the one that just happened in Philadelphia. What is going on with the plane staying in the sky? Some of us have plane anxiety. Now, I done flew before. I've flown to Vegas a few times. But I was so stressed out crossing that doggone gate. People always tell me, how you scared to fly and you like roller coasters? Baby, because roller coasters is still attached to a track. If the roller coaster mess up, somebody can, unless you upside down or a seatbelt break, but I'm talking about that. If the roller coaster stop on the track, somebody can come up and get you. Who gonna get you if something happened in the air? Jesus? So some of us have too much anxiety for y'all to be playing with the planes like this. Too much. We need to figure out what's going on. And at this point, I'm sick of 2025 already. But y'all heard them speaking about this plane crash that happened in 1982. Well, I found some footage of the plane crash from 1982 in the Potomac River. Same river. So we're going to check it out. But before we do, Confidante. Always remember, if it doesn't cause you to elevate, it's causing you to depreciate. Now raise those glasses, clink, and let's drink till we meet again. Ta-ta.
These images are what 7 News viewers saw January 13th, 1982, 40 years ago today, after an ice-laden Air Florida Flight 90 crashed into the Potomac River on takeoff from National Airport.
There were hundreds of people stranded at National Airport. There were like no seats in the old terminal.
Chester Panzer said he and his sound man, George Patterson, had just finished a story at the airport and were headed home when the 7 News assignment desk turned them around. A crash, and they were in the midst of the rescue. 5 people managed to get out of the plane underwater.
Priscilla Tirado is left on the ice, and she's flailing around trying to swim. Must be an obvious shock. You could smell jet fuel all over the place. And when she's in open water, she lost her grip on the life ring, and she's now out there all by herself. I'm close up on her face, and you could just see that she had this panic look in her face that she's going to die out there. I saw was Lenny Skutnik making his first motions to jump into the water. So I get him jumping in. He swims out to Priscilla Tirado and grabs her.
The image of an average guy, government worker, passing by, hero, touched everybody. But getting it to a live truck on the D.C. side of the river and running a mile where then photographer Peggy Gilgannon and the late Cardosa Worthy were waiting.
Chester showed up and he was out of breath. And the news director said, mic him up. So we mic'd him up, and then Chester narrated the video as it went out.
There was no time to panic. It was just like, okay, let's kind of do this.
So the photographers told me they had reporters with them when they left the station, but as it turned out, they got separated, and so this entire story on Channel 7 was done by photographers.
Then afterward, we just all, together gave us like a hug because we had managed to pull this off. No reporters, it was just all the crews. Together we did it.
I remember the day JFK was assassinated and where I was.
Champagne secrets on your screen.